It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Satish Jha, the co-founder of OLPCI, a social entrepreneur with experience ranging across the board. Mr. Satish Jha, coming from the USA, is a man you want to listen to. Because when he walks into the room, men and women listen. We had the great fortune to listen to him speak in Amsterdam at the Women Economic Forum where he was with us. He's made the journey to be with us all the way in New Delhi. It is an absolute honor to have Mr. Jha with us. If we have Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya in the house, Satyan Mishra, Revati Roy. I'm just going to call out the names and check because we're running early. So I'm going to just check if the panelists are already here. Dr. Shelly Batra, Shweta Mangal, Dr. Gayatri Vasudevan, and David Wilcox. Oh my God, we have Mr. Satish Jha all to ourselves for this moment. So please make the most of it. I promise you, this is going to be a special treat, a learning experience to hear him speak.
Should I say good evening or good afternoon? Hello. Well, I think I had a recently large panel, but they all came from amazing cities called Bombay, Bangalore, Nagpur, Lucknow, wherever. And I don't know what happened. Today is Sunday, and they all wanted to be here on Monday, Sunday, whatever it was. And I don't know what happened, but I hope they walk in, because people told me some will be coming, and they confirmed they will all be coming, but Sunday being Sunday, I don't know what's happening here. In the meantime, social entrepreneurship has been something, a journey I've been on for the last 20 years. And some would like to say that some of us, three of us, I remember one Microsoft guy, Akhtar Badshah, McKinsey guy, Samir, last name I forget now, and we spent some time in Baramati, which is in Pune, near Pune, about 80 kilometers from Pune. Founded Baramati Conference. That was in 2001. We were trying to figure out how do we understand and characterize people who look at life of creating value for society differently. These are people, they don't take government donations, they don't take government grants, they don't take market route. They try to fill in the blank what markets can't do, what governments can't do. That space they try to walk in. Very tough call. Governments can't do, markets can't do, and some individual decides to do that job. It's not an easy journey. And then we found that some people are passionate about it, they want to make a difference, and they keep struggling. And how do they go about it? So finally we figured out they are looking for social purpose, but they are very enterprising. How do you call them? We gave them a name, social entrepreneurs. Until then, word was understood, entrepreneurs were understood, social cause was there, but the word together was not combined until 2001. And then we found it became very common word slowly. It became part of our wisdom, received wisdom. And now we know social entrepreneurship as if it's something we have known all along. And anyway, so my journey began with a small village in Madhya Pradesh called Anuppur, Jamdi. Was the village, Anuppur was the block, district was Shahdol, and Madhya Pradesh was the state. I was a student. I got pulled into it because, I think one of our guests is here. Hi, Vijay. I'm in Tango Hall. Okay, I'm waiting for you. And Vijay is a great guy. He founded Ek Gaon. I'll come to that later. The journey began in village Jamdi, Anupur block, Shahrol district, Madhya Pradesh as such. And the fact was that when I went there in the evening about 5:30, I had to stay with a farmer. And I had gone only with 2 pairs of clothes, 2 kurtas and 2 pajamas. Idea was to live like the villager, to understand the village, their life, what do they do. And I reach about 5:30 p.m. and I go to this farmer's house. He says, okay, every day tribals collect tendu leaf. Tendu leaf is something bidi is made of. Bidi is the Indian cigarette of villages. They roll it, they put some tobacco inside. It's a handmade bidi, which is now done in factories, etc. It was even then done in larger kind of manufacturing units, which are all hand done. And when I go there were rules of the government. Government said that a collection of leaves should be in so many bundles. A bundle should have so many leaves. The payment should be made at a certain point in time. There were some norms for that. So when I went there, I saw something happening. There were some, 70, 80 villagers, tribals. They were sitting there trying to sell their bidi collection of the day to the people who came to collect it. They collected from bidi manufacturers who were about a few hundred kilometers from that village. I saw something interesting, that somebody was writing, a farmer will give 25 bundles, and the man who was writing will write 20 bundles. They were illiterate, so nobody knew what is written. Rules said that you have to give the money the same day, and these people will not give the money the same day. They will collect today, go back to their factories, bring the money next day. In the process, if you gave 30 bundles and they wrote 25, there was no way to question it because you did not know what they wrote. There was no receipt given. It was all word of mouth. So one lady said that, well, I gave 30. So the guy said, but it's written 25. The book says 25. Ask anyone to read it. There was one guy who could read. He said, yeah, it says 25. And that's how bidi manufacturers shortchanged these tribals. So they'll collect 30 bundles, they'll pay them for 25, they'll pay one day late. So I said, look, if there's a problem, as long as I'm here, you can't do this. So tomorrow you have to pay tomorrow's cost tomorrow. And funny thing is, when I went to the farmer's house, he said, tomorrow there'll be a problem because you have said something. These people are going to not take it lying down. Tomorrow they'll come with a big force. They will come with people who are going to, maybe they'll have guns, maybe they will have lathis. I said, we'll see. Next morning I went to the collector of the district. Collector said, why do you want to engage in this? I said, because you're not doing your job well, so I have to do this for you. Now just imagine telling a collector who actually runs the whole district, you are 19-year-old, he's about 30 years old, he's an IS officer, he has the power. You tell him, you're doing this job because he's not doing his job well. But he said, look, I can tell you one thing, you look so different, they won't go after you, first thing. Second, that I will still provide you some support. So he sent one policeman to come up. Yeah. One policeman. So I got a policeman to support me, but when I went back, I found something interesting. There were 5 people with 2 guns sitting on the charpoi, which is a cot. And they began telling me that I shouldn't do politics. I said, this is not politics, it's just a very straight thing. Giving you tendu leave, you should be giving them the price the way the government says. And then there were 300 people in the field, and their stuff was not being taken by these people. Now, if you don't purchase the tendu leaf from the farmer on the same day and don't pay them, they can't eat because they first sell, they take some money, then they go and buy something, that's when they eat. So they'll have to go hungry. Now, that fell on my shoulders. I said, that can't happen. So when I went to talk to them, I found nobody was willing to stand up and say, and then finally I looked at one boy who was there, who educated. I said, did they give you money yesterday? So one guy got up. He said, how? Means they did not give him the money. Once he got up, all of them got up. Once all of them got up, these 5 guys ran away. Now there is a movement. But I have no way of knowing what movement is, how to handle this. How do you have 300 farmers who are agitated about something. I had zero experience. That's when I began a different journey. But that was a seed of my social entrepreneurship, which basically talked about you take a social cause of just getting people their due, which is their deserved stuff. I'm not even talking of bigger things, just what they were authorized to have, which was legally theirs, just to get that what a battle it used to be. That's where my journey begins, and then later on, I'll do 30, 40 projects. But more important than me is someone I really greatly admire, who's on my left, Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya. He founded Ek Gaon, and I would like him to talk about his story. Then we'll come and share our experiences. So Vijay.
Thank you, Satish. Happy to be here. I think thanks for the introduction. I think one of the challenges that we always talk about from countries which are in the southern hemisphere, that the primary source of livelihood is linked to agriculture, and that's a major share of population which works in it. And it's an interesting thing when we find very interesting data which indicates in one way, whereas the results and the outcome that we are seeing is completely different. I'll give one example. Let's take a decadal growth of inflation. Decadal growth of inflation between 2010 to 2019 now, on an average it has been about 10%, which is in terms of market prices of food. If we include oil, which is a very important component of Indian food, then it is about 12 to 13%. That's the decadal growth of inflation in food sector. But very interestingly, at the very same time, you find that the farm income have reduced during the same period by almost 25 to 30% from the same source, which means that the inflation, average inflation, is having a negative impact on the production system, which should not happen because actually the production is increasing. So if you look into the whole thing, there is a business which is supposed to be growing, and all indicators means that the downward supply chain of that business should also grow and benefit the producer. That is not happening. And that doesn't happen for primarily two reasons. Price is the outcome of those reasons. One is policy. How the policy or how the political economy of agriculture is designed in a country, and what are the role of the stakeholders in that market that they play. And this is an area where Ek Gaon has been working for last 10 years aggressively in agriculture as such. Although our background much comes from the rural services space, where we use information technology for service provisioning. That has been our background. And agriculture was supposed to be a very important area for us, but it was only from a point of view of providing information services. But about 5 years back, when we were 5-6 years back, when we were providing farmers farm advisory services on the ground, then we observed that many of the farmers were not renewing our services, which essentially was our business model. So we, as a company, were failing in our business because the farmers were not renewing the subscription of the services we were offering them. Now, in such a scenario, we started investigating what is the reason. Is the service good, not good enough? All impact studies that we have done and outreach program that we have done indicated that farmers loved the services. There's no problem about the services. It's just that the disillusionment from the work itself was too high. It's like being in a job where there's no increment and every year the salary has reduced. So this is the job of a farmer that we witness, largely because the market doesn't pay them the price. So in our discussion, farmers asked us, would you be willing to help us to reach out market? And that is the area where we started looking into whether we can take a plunge, because we were purely an IT services focused firm, which was focusing on only providing services to the farmers and not essentially jumping ourselves into a mud bath, which is agriculture supply chain. It is a very difficult domain, and it was not even our expertise. And that's the area where we took few years to look into it, decided, and finally plunge into it. Is something that we are doing. In short, what we do is right now is that we work with the farmers. We have about 25,000 farmers across 7 different states in the country, plus the Northeast, where we are working with them on improving the production, then taking their farm produce and bringing out them to market, ensuring that they get a good price. Plus, we also believe that that farmer should also be a shareholder in the profits. Something what Amul has done long time back in India, but somehow we have never taken or internalized that model in our development paradigm. So that is something which we do. We ensure that the farmer is a shareholder in the profit. So every product that is sold in the market, 10% of that, it goes back to the farmer as a bonus, which we believe helps to sustain income gaps which remains in the farmer supply chain. There are a few more details into how we work, and there are operational issues in it. I'll be happy to share and discuss that.
What I would like to do is I'll ask some questions to Vijay, and maybe they'll clarify my thoughts and yours too. In case you want to ask someone without any question, just raise a hand, and hopefully I'll see or someone can point out who is raising their hands. Let me ask you, what was the inspiration for you to start Ekgaon?
It is quite way back. I was working in Ahmedabad at that time at the Indian Institute of Management there, and there was a very interesting project I was leading at that time for the World Bank called the Infoda project, where we were connecting grassroots innovators with the Center for Excellences, and then trying to hope that such a knowledge network which essentially improved the innovation. So that was the whole idea about the project, which had some success, some failures, and lot of learning from a point of view of understanding Indian language technologies, internet, and understanding of the whole rural paradigm, whether there is a possibility. So frankly, what we saw was this, that we saw an opportunity. India is largely, like I said, largely rural, underserved, huge market opportunity. We believe that technology can play a major role because the infrastructure boundaries which existed then can be overcome, and that is the reason for us to take the plunge.
And which batch MBA are you?
No, I'm not from the HEM. I was heading a project there. I am from another management institute called Indian Institute of Forest Management.
That's right, but which year?
98-2000.
Who are the people who came to your batches? When they look at you, how do they look at your achievements?
Okay, that's interesting. I go very rarely to my campus and talk to my alumnus, but I do interact. Many of them reach out and wanted to learn. I think what for most have been that most people think that this journey is, they look at the achievement part of it more. It's always the recognition, achievement, and the good word attracts people more than the real hardship that you put on the ground. So more people want to know how to get that award or that recognition and all, but not really. I have found within my people who have reached out, hardly 4 to 5% who actually want to know what we are doing on the ground and want to themselves go and learn about it. There have been few people who have done PhD on our work, and I remember 2 of them wanting to do PhD sitting in their campuses, whereas 3 of them went actually to all the field areas, met farmers, and understood what we are trying to do.
That's exactly what I wanted to point out, that is the recognition that social space gives us, that becomes a huge driver rather than incomes. But income is very important from a sustainable point of view. Today, in 20 years journey, how many people do you have in organization?
I would look at it like this. The total kind of an impact or the outreach that we have been able to do. Through our various activities and outreach, we have reached about 1 million households across the country. We have, in a supply chain of food supply chain, we have around 25,000 farmers. We have a staff of around 25 people across, these are direct staff of Ekgaon. These are staff across 4 offices across the country. But most importantly, we have also worked, integral part of our model is to work with the farmer producer organizations or farmer producer companies. So these are companies owned by the farmers. We help them promote it. Ekgaon is not a shareholder in these companies. We just help them promote it. And just to give you an insight, we have in our 14,000 shareholders, 70% of them are women farmers. They are the shareholders of our companies. And of 4 companies, of them are led by the women. They are the board. They are in the board, and they are they are the directors of the company. If we include the staff of them, these extension people, then we are about 100 people then.
What would be the total revenue impact that if you take all 100 people as such in a year?
What
in terms of revenue? Revenue, if you had to look at the contribution of all the 100, what would be the revenue?
So there are 2 ways to look at the revenue figures. So the producer companies that we are working with are about 90 producer companies. 5 of them we have promoted, and rest 85 are the ones who have reached out to us and said that please help us access markets. So if we look into that, then there are 2 avenues of revenue. One revenue which directly comes through Ekgaon. Then that is the revenue of those companies. On an average, most of these companies are in the range of around ₹1 million, and in terms of their business with us, ₹1 million or 1.5 million rupees. But when it comes to their business with the market, because most of the produce, we want them to sell in the local market, because that's very important, integral part of our business model, that farm producer company should not think about a market, say in Tamil Nadu, rather they should try to sell it in Madhya Pradesh only. So there are local market linkages that we have built. Like for example, we have helped one farm producer companies of around 1,000 farmers selling organic wheat to a local company there, which didn't come on our balance sheet. Completely, it was a cash transaction, because that's how the market works in rural area. That was worth about 20 to 25, 30 million rupees.
When we define social entrepreneurship, we said a model must be sustainable, replicable, and scalable. On scalability, what would you like to say?
So we have always believed, in fact, we have always believed from day one that we believed in. So one of the things that often asked, and I should talk about it, Ekgaon is not a non-profit. It's a for-profit, and always has been a for-profit, has never been even attempted a hybrid model also. Because we believed very interesting thing that very early on, we were probably the first organization to work on a for-profit model in a rural space, which was not a convention, say 15, 16 years back. And the reason why we opted was scalability, because we wanted that whatever technologies or systems in the work models we develop, it needs to be scalable. So if you had asked me the question a few years back, then I would have had a different answer about scalability. Right now, my focus on scalability is building partnership with these producer organizations which need strengthening. So we work with them and we support them. In fact, now the governments have, several governments, state governments have started reaching out to us, say, why don't you take over our producer companies that we have promoted? So our model is something like this, that there is an existing group of farmers. They have formed a company, maybe 500 farmers to 1,000 farmers. They reach out to us, they come on our platform, and we help them access markets. So we, as of now, have 90 of such companies, which more than 300,000 farmers, which are there. But we have not connected all of them to the markets as of now.
How do you source your people in the organization? How do you hire them? Because given your placing in the market space.
So one of the most difficult thing that we face is we face has been the human resource in the areas where we are working. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, not many people want to go and work in a difficult terrain, and rural being that one. Even my own alumnus don't want to go and work in rural areas. They will prefer to work in bigger cities, but somehow they want to work in rural development. So which is a very difficult thing for us. So what, over a period of 16 years learning that I have on this, is that we try, for us it is important that sustainability of the management intervention that we are doing in rural area is there. That is very important for us. So one of the things that we look into is that we should try as much as possible hire local people in our offices. So each of our offices has local people. We don't have too many of people, say from Delhi, going and doing a fly-by-night visits. Not part of our model. We have a very, very localized teams drawn from the local people, trained over a period of time, and then incorporated in the workplace. We are embarking on the second level of our human resource model, in which we'll be taking over in our various production enterprises within the value chain of agriculture, sons and daughters of the farmers who are not now finding jobs in the recession market of our country. So they are a good option for us to hire in the value chain.
Okay. If you had to scale it up tomorrow, say 5 times in 5 years, what would you need? What kind of support from the market and or investors and or other professionals or creating community? What kind of support will help you do that?
Well, I think scalability is a definite possibility. We are working, agriculture in India is a very, very segmented marketplace. It's a hugely segmented marketplace, and it has an immense opportunity. Just to give you an insight into it, India is one of the largest producer of almost 32 various food crops in the world. It's either the first or the second producer of the world. But we are not even in the first 40 to 50 companies, top food companies. We don't have any company from India which is part of that market. Our exports are 1/5 of what the US exports are, whereas it's a large producer. So there's a obvious gap in this supply chain, if you can see, of organizing the production system and making it accessible in the market, and which actually is a great opportunity. And if we talk about scalability, what I believe that since we have a very fragmented marketplace, or very small farmers also, aggregation like what has been done in Uber or Ola or Oyo Rooms, aggregation, technology-enabled aggregation is the only way forward. So technology-enabled aggregation is one model that needs to be looked into, because definitely land-based aggregation is not possible from a legal as well as sentimental viewpoint of the people. And the second is, I would say, since you asked about most critical missing piece, more than finance, is actually the human resource. India produces the largest number of agriculture graduates in the world, but 95% of them don't work in agriculture at all. They just don't work in agriculture. So you can imagine that the workforce which has been trained to do work in a particular market, in a particular sector of economy, it is not even working in that economy. So that is the second. And the third, of course, is the finance. More than anything, I think if the finance starts coming in the value chain space, which is being opened up in the agriculture and food value chain sector. I'll give you one quick number on this so that you get the context of it. 2002 to 2014 figure of total foreign direct investment in food and agriculture sector in India was $2 billion. 12-year investment in India on FDI in agriculture was $2 billion. Whereas a single company called Flipkart raised more money in 2 years. So just imagine a sector which is such a huge sector had such a small investment. And I'm not even talking about the local investment at all, which is anyway meager. In the last 3 to 4 years, suddenly there is a lot of noise and a lot of interest in agriculture space, because other economic, probably not because of anything else, but because other economic activities are actually not catching up. So in just 4 years, last 4 years, that $2 billion have been doubled almost. So there's a positive inclination of money coming into the sector. But yes, if so-called impact investors, I'm calling them always so-called because none of them I consider impact investors, largely because microfinance is not impact investment. Sorry, I disagree, and anybody who works on the ground will disagree with it. If you talk about investment, if impact investors are really wanting to do anything about investment, then they should be investing in the largest livelihood base in the rural area, which is agriculture.
Thank you so much, Vijay. It was absolutely insightful listening to you, and thank you so much for sharing your time, and to Satish Ji for inviting you on this panel. So I will come back to a question to Satish Ji later. We all know he's a veteran. He's been into so many things, from media to digital education, and he's always at the cutting edge of new things. He's a true blue entrepreneur. I'm very interested in what you're speaking about is entrepreneurship in the agriculture field, and you've chosen a social entrepreneurship for-profit model, and we understand that. We have universities. I also am the chancellor of 3 universities which are highly into agriculture education. So when you spoke about human resource, I was very, very interested, because our endeavor is really to bring technology-enabled developments into skilling for agriculture, because as you rightly said, the largest percentage of people who are graduating from the so-called agricultural universities, which are government universities dedicated with hectares and hectares of lands dedicated for research and development, none of them wants to really work on the field. Everybody wants to land a government job, because it's like insurance for life. And nobody really, and the private sector, because of a little sort of politicization of agriculture education, because farmers is the big vote bank as well. There are issues in private sector giving education. So we do try in our own way as a private university to do that in a not-for-profit way. Education is not for profit. And we've not been really facing issues from the human resource side, but from the environment side, so much so that you have students from government universities protesting that these children are better educated, more technology enabled, so they will get the seats in the MSc courses and get the government jobs, so you should stop them from getting a good education. So the challenges are completely outside of the agricultural and technology sphere. Having said that, we still do and try, and I completely agree with you that the future is really the technology-enabled education. And I would like to refer to 2 countries here who really are role models. And we have a presence of Israel students over here from the Schenker Institute, and delegates from the Netherlands as well. We've done 3 women economic forums in the Netherlands, and Satish Ji was with us in Amsterdam recently as well. Is the model they have adopted, and they are leaders in agriculture. They don't have that kind of a land base as we have. They don't have that kind of a farmer's base as we have. Yet they are leading in providing, agriculture produce, organic produce, various, flower produce to the rest of the world. They are hubs. So what do you think we can learn very precisely from their example? Obviously, there are different countries, started at different times, but what do you think if we were to, and India now, let's say, has a very good relationship with Israel, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's and Prime Minister Bibi's leadership and friendship. What do you think there's a couple of things we could learn from these 2 amazing small countries, few people, but who've really trailblazed the way in enabling agricultural productivity, and their farmers being at the cut, and everybody wanting to be a farmer? Like you said, nobody wants to go in the field. So what can we learn from these 2 very great trailblazing examples, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant question that you've asked. In fact, just to add, before answering that question, just wanted to add on something that we are also doing. I think it's important. We can't just, as somebody who's working on with so much experience, we can't just feel happy about it. We need to get to it that we need to pass on some of that learnings out in the market as well. We have recently set up an agri-technology incubator in Assam, in the northeast of India, with the Assam Agriculture University, which has been now funded by the Niti Aayog government of India. And we have already started the operation from this month, where we are planning to build B2B businesses incubation. Now, I'm not saying B2C. I'm not going to create any products. We are talking about B2B businesses. And this is something which I want to, in relation to that, I want to answer the context of Netherlands. I'll start with Netherlands first, is the importance of understanding how to do agriculture business. That is where fundamentally we lack. We lack in the area of doing business in agriculture because we don't have financial products which support agriculture. Whereas if you look into one of the largest around agriculture bank is the Rabobank, which is from Netherlands, which is a mega bank supporting agriculture investment across the world, right? Do we have, just imagine, see the role of NABARD, which is supposed to do the same thing, is dismal. That's the least to be said, that it is dismal. It has not been able to, it has two funds of 100 crore each for a country like India to support value chain financing, which is a joke. Now, that much money is burned by a single Swiggy company on motorcycle people running and delivering food. That is where the fundamental problem is, that you don't have learn how to do financing of agriculture. That is more important. How to do business of agriculture because you can't expect farmers to adopt technologies until unless, for example, I'll give an example about it. Having a lot of things talk about using new seeds, better yielding seeds. There was a lot of talk about using a seed for mustard seed, a high yielding variety of mustard seed for the farmers in Punjab. The interesting thing is that the current farmers who are producing the mustard seed now, they are not getting the market price, and you are still talking about increasing further production and not giving them the market price. So which is fundamental flawed. We are importing pulses from varied countries, from Canada to the African countries plus Burma, whereas our own farmers, Madhya Pradesh is the largest producer of pulses in the country, and we work there. They are not purchasing from the farmers of Madhya Pradesh. So fundamental problem is in the political economy of how the agriculture is being governed. Until unless you start unshackling that from the government policy framework, you can't make many changes. So some of the changes that we can learn from a business enterprise point of view, probably the good technologies. One of the interesting things both from Israel and Netherlands is the area of small technologies. And why small technologies? Because our farmers are small, our land pieces are small. So this learning we can definitely bring from these countries into India for improving our per unit productivity in which India lags, but we need to make them affordable. Other than that, and again, for making that affordable, there's no investment available.
It's so interesting that you pointed out, literally there are gaps and gaps and gaps. There is a financing gap. You don't have an ecosystem of financing. There is a mindset gap of from a training human resource perspective, and a mindset as well to not look at agriculture as merely sowing a seed and producing, but really the whole chain and the agriculture business, the business mindset and the government piece. That it's you mentioned Israel. When I landed at the airport over there, one of the things I saw which was very interesting was that at the airport itself, they have a Ministry of Agriculture office, because they have a separate section looking at all the agriculture exports. So there's a whole like a ministry which is situated at the airport itself. They're so conscious of the kind of importance they put on it. So I think there's a great opportunity here, and I will go to the opportunity part. We spoke of the challenges and the 3 problems over there. Satishji, you are really currently working with a group at Harvard and MIT, if I'm not mistaken, which is looking at the natural medicine, plant-based medicine, integral healing paths and well-being as well. Now, India has had a great advantage from our ancient learning. And everybody who's coming here, all the delegates as well, they're coming for Ayurvedic healing, they're going to massage centers, they're coming for natural healing medicines. I run a company in Bio Ayurveda which is into that. You have been a pioneer in the field when digital education was just about being talked about, and you had the one laptop per child program, and so many states now there's a screen in every hand, whether it's a smartphone or whatever. But you were at the forefront. Again, I see you at the forefront of yet another field which is just opening up. Where do you see the opportunity for India and Make in India in this coming together of, agriculture, healing, our ancient systems, health and wellness?
To connect with the world, India has to learn how the world is working. And the missing piece here is that we are happy doing the way we do things. And the world likes to do things the way the world likes to do. So if to connect with that, for instance, in the US, now they have begun appreciating the fact that traditional medicinal systems that evolved over millennia, they have lots to teach us, lots to help us. They can bring down the adverse factors. They can make life much easier. They can help post-op care. There are many, many ways they've begun seeing that. Right now they're trying to understand the details of it, but what they find missing is our traditional systems, including from plants to all the way we manufacture, they are not process-based. Their process is not perfect. So the challenges are in process, and FDA cannot approve things which do not follow a certain process. And as you've seen, even the companies that actually got their molecules accepted by the FDA, ultimately they fell on the,
We have Dr. Lamia sitting here from Kuwait, and she's found about a couple of plants that can really, are cures for leukemia and things like that. And yet she has had problems, and she has research of 30 years behind her, an academic, scientific, and yet you face problems in getting those validations, like you said.
Exactly. The reason is it's all about process. Anything that we do, if you map the process so that you can actually see at every point in time what are the risk factors, what are the challenges.
But there are lobbies as well preventing something like that, right? There are pharmaceutical
As
lobbies preventing something like that from happening.
That's one side. Another side that I keep hearing is, in India, the doctors do not want Ayurveda to become prominent either. As a matter of fact, everybody says the doctors, people who have done MDs, they have come in the way of use of traditional knowledge systems as such. So what's happening now is Harvard and institutions like Sloan Kettering, Anderson for cancer, and MIT, 32 institutions have come to create Boston Center for Excellence in Integrative Medicine, Health, and Human Development. The basic idea is that American system does a great job in extreme situations. They can do miracles on the one hand. On the other hand, 300,000 patients die just because the quality of care is lacking something somewhere. Something is broken somewhere. They find the cost of per citizen cost of dispensing healthcare in America has crossed $10,000. So about $3.5 trillion. India's GDP is $2 trillion. American healthcare is $3.5 trillion. America spends about 70% more than India's national income just on healthcare. They want to reduce that. They want to bring it down. They want to make it manageable. But more they try, more expensive it becomes. So now the understanding is, if you bring in traditional knowledge systems from India, from China, and they try to integrate that with what West creates in terms of process and search for molecule, what defines is the difference is this: we look at holistic knowledge, very little process. They look at topical understanding of things in as much detail as possible, but process-based. So there is a huge difference in the two worlds. How do you combine the two? The journey is long, but it's begun. There's something called Mind Body Institute in Harvard, which try to understand some of these things which you don't understand. So now we are going from something which is very material to something which is unexplored, something which can't be seen just in the base of material. And we are capturing the knowledge of traditions, nature, and not just creating something which is chemical-based, but nature-based and so on and so forth. So let's see how it goes forward. But as of today, there are 240 scientists in the US, in 17 other countries, Western countries, who have come together to form this Boston Center for Human Health and Human Development. And let's see where it goes. As of now, we have done 3 major conferences. And the body of thinking currently is that we should move away from what has already been taken to the level of excellence. And I come from a pharmaceutical background too. I was a chief information officer with Hoffmann La Roche. I spent 4.5 years understanding that. What we understand very well is in microcosm, we are perfect. We try to be perfect. We can't be perfect, we try to be perfect in that space. But in a larger sense, we just do not have the capacity, like Mr. Gates said one time. When it comes to larger issues, even the wealth of Microsoft is just a speck on the resource requirement scale as such. Only governments can do that. That's one side of the story. Much of the development in the US medical system has come from government-sponsored research, by the way. It doesn't get talked about. And now there is a resistance. We should use that where we can cut down the cost. So I think 3 factors are very important. Cost going up, adverse events kind of increasing, and the care quality just not being where it should be. They have led to our change in terms of exploring how people survived had a long life when none of these medicines existed.
What is India's opportunity?
India's opportunity is huge, and if I was advising or I had an opportunity to do that, I would say we should invest in research at the scale of not less than, say, about engaging 100,000 Indian scientists in next 2 to 3 years. Spend about, say, 50,000 crore rupees over a period of next 5 years, and create 20,000 crore rupees research. That's nothing. A single company, I worked for Roche. Roche used to invest more, at least 10 times more in research and development in 1991 than the entire India did. Even today, every single pharmaceutical company in the world invests more in research than entire India does in all research and development. Government doesn't believe what I'm saying because they think what they do nobody understands. Fair enough. But the world says every single, like Pfizer for instance, Pfizer's R&D budget is $22 billion annual. $22 billion. So I'm saying even if you do 20,000 crores, this is only $3 billion. With $3 billion consistently for next 5 to 10 years, you will have quite a few things coming out of it. Engage 100,000 people in India, give about $5 to $10 billion a budget, and see what happens. Let them find something.
Yeah, and if we've done it in the area of space, for instance, why can't we do it in this?
Actually, in space, there's a huge cooperation going on, and we can cooperate. Why not? Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating panel. Any last messages, any parting words from both of you? On social entrepreneurship, message to the women especially, anything or anything else you'd like to say, just in closing and continuation of what we've been discussing.
So I'll say a few words about what Satishji was talking about in terms of traditional medicine system and how traditional medicine system. So one of the interesting thing is the traditional medicine system's resource material comes from the forest and adjoining areas, and mostly cultivated by the traditional tribal farmers. We work with some of those farmers. We work on the extracted herbs which are there. And like Satishji said, there is a massive underinvestment in the sector. Let's not take an example of US, let's take the example of China. China has heavily interested in the Chinese system of medicine, heavily invested. So you have a huge Chinese system of medicine industry which is growing over years and years, whereas the same has not been done in India at all in the first place. So underinvestment is largely there. Human resources available, but again being very underinvested, they can't just compete at all. Of the less than 2% budget which is there for health, the portion of Ayush, which is the ministry which deals in this area, is very, very tiny. So you can't have any impact at all except for organizing yoga event across the world. You can't do much about it. So if you actually want to do something, you have to go beyond that. Beyond the marketing, you have to actually invest in the human resource, which is then supposed to take the services to the people. That is important. On the agriculture bit, I want to have on the positive note. I probably sounded very negative about everything, but there's a kind of a silver lining in the crowd somewhere as well. There's a massive feminization of agriculture which is happening in India. And when I'm saying that, I may be actually being a very anti-feminine here because always 70% of all labor in agriculture was women. But the problem was that they were never recognized as contributors to the agriculture. Now what is happening is because of massive poor income from the agriculture activities, men is migrating to the cities or any place where they have to find another alternative source of livelihood, which is not coming from agriculture. Is a very interesting thing which is happening is that the women are taking over the farms, not just as a labor, now as a manager of the farms. They are now taking the decision which crops to grow. Now believe me when I'm saying which crop to grow, it has a huge ramification because that decision was always taken by a male earlier. Now with this change, small change, there's a whole new dimension which is changing in which women are the ones who are diversifying Indian agriculture. From a single crop system, they are moving into multiple crop system. They are looking at nutrition and health and food of the family first, rather than selling the produce in the market, which is a completely contrary view for last 30 years of agriculture. And if this happens, then the biggest challenge that we see of India is the nutrition issue. You will see some changes happening in 15 to 20 years time, because there's a huge amount of change which is happening in this way. And I believe that that is a very positive change. Of course, there are a lot of legal, women still can't get a loan from the bank because the land is not in their name, and a lot of other issues. So those challenges remain, but that I think is a very, very positive thing which is happening in Indian agriculture. Thank you.
What I would like to say is Dr. Harbeen has begun a big movement when I see Women Economic Forum. There is something unique about it, and I think she has created a global movement in some ways. It'll pick up momentum. From there, I would say, we know how boys think, we know how men think, how job-oriented they have become. Women, because they have not been pulled into the jobs section, or rather the employment sphere, so to say, they have an opportunity to easily, without unlearning the job mindset, they can begin with the entrepreneurial mindset. That is easier for women to do than men, because men somehow got indoctrinated, somehow the mindset got built around jobs, and jobs. Anyone who did that as a leader did a huge harm to our nation, because we are essentially by nature very entrepreneurial. Societies work very hard for us to become job oriented. Now to make it unlearn, because a society built on jobs can never really progress the way an enterprise society can. Just ask yourself, why is it that 96% innovation on any innovation index still happens in America? It's a nation which has very little security for anyone. All the opportunities, very little security. I'm not saying there's no security, there is some. India doesn't have that security yet. But even that little India doesn't have. So you can imagine when there's no security, you all are entrepreneurs by default. I would say he has a huge opportunity, and maybe for whatever reasons, Dr. Harbeen might take the lead in creating that momentum where women begin thinking not jobs, but entrepreneurship. And that will be the beginning.
Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating discussion with experts in the field, and I want to thank both of you for taking out your time and helping us all. It's Sunday, day 4 of the Women Economic Forum, and you can see we are all very full of a lot of ideas, and yet you are here and sharing your energy, enthusiasm, and expertise with us. We are very, very grateful, and I would like to invite Mansi to please felicitate. I invite Satish ji to join me in felicitating.
Yes, we would
Vijay
like
Pratap
to.
Singh.
I'd like to invite Mr. Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya to accept this award on behalf of the All Ladies League as an exceptional leader of excellence for doing the very inspiring work that he does in the field of rural India. Thank you so much for your time and energy, all of you. Thank you. That was wonderful. one last little surprise for you. The talent is in the house, but we just need 10 minutes to set up. So if you can just hold your ground, and we will be done after that.